Your baby did something less than an hour ago that you interpreted completely wrong. Not because you're a bad father or mother, but because nobody taught you the language. And it's one of the oldest languages in the world. Welcome to Silent Baby Mind. Subscribe right now because what you're about to learn today will permanently change the way you look at your child. 14 behaviors, 14 messages your baby has been trying to send you for months. And we're starting with the one that happens every single night and almost no parent understands correctly. 1. Why does your baby get agitated right before falling asleep? They call it the second wind, and it drives millions of parents crazy. You just spent 40 minutes rocking them, they're almost asleep, and suddenly they twist, cry, flail their arms. It feels like all that work just went down the drain. It's not a tantrum, it's pure neurology. The baby's brain, in the first few months, hasn't yet developed the transition system between alert and sleep states. That moment of agitation is literally the nervous system fighting with itself. One part wants to shut down, another fires one last burst of activity. Infant sleep researchers call it a transition storm. What you should not do: re-stimulate them. No lights, no toys, no diaper change unless it's urgent. What actually works? Firm physical contact, constant temperature, and your voice in a low, monotone tone. You're helping their nervous system cross the bridge. Don't make them run across it. 2. Why does your baby look at you and then suddenly look away? You're playing with them. They're laughing. You're making eye contact. And suddenly they turn their head as if they've ignored you. Are they rejecting you? Did you bore them? Quite the opposite. Sustained eye contact generates intense emotional stimulation in a baby. When they look away, they're self-regulating. They're telling you, I need a second to process all of this. It's exactly what an adult does when they look down during an emotionally intense conversation. Babies who can look away and look back are, according to early development studies, babies who are already learning to manage their own emotions. It's a skill, not a rejection. When they look back at you, and they will, that visual reunion is their way of saying, ready, let's continue. 3. Why does your baby cry differently depending on the moment? There are parents who swear they can tell the difference between a hunger cry and a pain cry. And they're right. Science backs them up. Pediatrician and linguist Priscilla Dunstan identified, after years of research, that babies all over the world, regardless of their parents' language, produce the same pre-linguistic sounds associated with specific needs. The sound ne appears when there's hunger, os when there's sleepiness, he when there's physical discomfort, ear when there's gas in the lower abdomen. These sounds happen before the crying escalates. They are the first layer of communication. Most parents only pick up on them when they've already turned into full crying because nobody taught them to listen to the layer before. Start listening before the crying. That's where the language is. 4. Why does your baby put everything in their mouth? Because their mouth knows more than their hands. In the first months of life, the area with the highest density of sensory receptors in a baby's body is not the fingers. It's the mouth. The number of nerve endings per square centimeter in a newborn's lips and tongue is extraordinarily greater than any other part of the body. When your baby puts an object in their mouth, they're performing a complete tactile analysis: temperature, texture, hardness, shape, weight. They're learning physics. They're learning geometry. They're building their mental map of the material world. Taking that object away without offering another one is like closing the book right on the most interesting page. Offer them a variety of safe textures. They're in the middle of scientific research. 5. Why does your baby cry when held by someone who isn't their mother or father? They're between 8 and 10 months old and used to smile at everyone. Now they cry when your mother picks them up. your best friend, their favorite uncle. What changed? Their brain just made an enormous leap. They've developed what developmental psychologists call object permanence applied to people. They now know that you exist even when they can't see you. And they know that strangers are not you. That crying is not regression, it's proof that their brain has matured enough to understand that there are specific people in their world and that your absence is a real loss, even if temporary. It's one of the most important milestones of the first year. The baby who doesn't go through this phase is the one who deserves clinical attention, not the other way around. 6. Why does your baby hit your face with their hand? Hard, without warning, and staring right at you while doing it. It's not aggression, it's exploration with communicative intent. Before developing verbal language, babies use direct physical contact as a tool for social interaction. The hit to the face is one of the most effective ways they've discovered to generate an immediate reaction from you. You change your expression, you make a sound, you move. They register all of it. They're learning cause and effect through you. The problem is that if you react very expressively, even out of pain or surprise, you may be reinforcing exactly the behavior you want to reduce. Your face is the most important mirror they have. Neutral reaction, gentle redirection of the hand toward another surface. The message they need is not, "Don't do that," but "Use this instead." 7. Why does your baby laugh when nothing funny is happening? You're folding laundry. There are no clowns, no tickling. And your baby bursts out laughing, staring at the wall. The baby's limbic system, the part of the brain that manages emotions, generates spontaneous bursts of well-being during the first weeks and months. It's training. The brain is literally practicing joy, calibrating the circuits that produce it, just like a musician plays scales before performing a full piece. There's also another explanation. Babies process recent experiences during quiet waking periods. That laughter may be the delayed emotional response to something that happened hours earlier. Your baby remembered something and liked it. That, in a being just a few months old, is extraordinary. 8. Why does your baby talk to you when you speak, but waits for you to finish? They do it from weeks after birth. You talk. They look at you. When you pause, they make sounds. When you talk again, they listen. This is called proto-conversation, and it's one of the most fascinating discoveries in recent developmental neurology. Babies are born with the conversational turn-taking mechanisms already active. They don't learn that conversations have turns. They know it out of the box. What they're doing in those exchanges is not random. They're synchronizing their neurological rhythm with yours. Neuroimaging studies show that during these proto-conversations, the brains of the baby and caregiver show synchronized activity patterns. They are literally thinking together. Every time you talk to them and wait for their response, you're building the architecture of all the language that will come later. 9. Why does your baby calm down instantly when you pick them up? Because their autonomic nervous system was in alarm mode, and physical contact with you deactivates it with a precision no medication can imitate. Body warmth, heart rate, the specific scent of the primary caregiver. These three elements together constitute the sensory environment in which the baby developed their nervous system for 9 months. When they recover them, their brain interprets that the threat has ceased, not because they understand the world, but because their biology recognizes the safest place that exists. There are parents who fear spoiling the baby with too much contact. The available scientific evidence says exactly the opposite. Babies with greater physical contact in the first months develop more robust stress regulation systems in the long term. You're not making them dependent. You're making them resilient. 10. Why does your baby imitate your facial expressions from hours after birth? Because they arrived in the world with a mirror neuron system already operational. Andrew Meltzoff, researcher at the University of Washington, documented in the 1970s something that changed developmental neurology forever. Babies as young as 42 minutes old were capable of imitating adult facial expressions, sticking out the tongue, opening the mouth, raising the eyebrows. This means your baby doesn't learn to imitate. They were born imitating. And every time you make an exaggerated face and they copy it, it's not an innocent game. It's the fundamental mechanism through which they will learn empathy, language, social bonds, and emotional understanding. Your face is their first textbook. Use it. 11. Why does your baby stare at strangers with such intense concentration? You're at the supermarket, on the bus, in a waiting room. Your baby locks eyes with a stranger across the aisle and stares at them with the kind of focused, unblinking attention most adults can't sustain for more than a few seconds. The stranger gets uncomfortable. You apologize, but your baby doesn't stop. They're not being rude. They're doing field work. The human face is, for a newborn, the most informationally rich object in the entire environment, more than any toy, more than any color, more than any sound. The brain dedicates a specific region, the fusiform face area, almost exclusively to processing faces. And in the first months of life, that region is hungry. It needs exposure. It needs data. When your baby stares at a stranger, they're calibrating. They're expanding their database of human expressions, skin tones, facial structures, and emotional signals. They're asking, what does a neutral human face look like? What does a smiling one look like from a different angle? How do eyebrows move on someone who isn't mom or dad? The stranger your baby is studying right now is contributing, without knowing it, to your child's future ability to read people, to build empathy, and to navigate social situations. Let them stare. It's the most productive thing they could be doing in that moment. 12. Why does your baby reach out for an object and then get frustrated even when you hand it to them? They stretch their whole arm toward the toy. They strain. They grunt. You pick it up and place it directly in their hand. And they cry. Or they throw it. Or they simply lose all interest the moment they have it. This baffles most parents. It looks like irrational behavior. It's not. What your baby wanted wasn't the object. They wanted the act of reaching. Between 4 and 7 months, the motor system is undergoing a critical calibration process. The brain is learning to coordinate eye, arm, and hand into a single intentional movement. The reaching itself is the exercise. The object is just the target. When you hand it to them, you've skipped the most important part. It's like handing someone a trophy without letting them run the race. The frustration you see is the system asking to try again. What actually helps? Place objects just slightly beyond their reach, not impossibly far, but far enough that they have to work for it. You're not being cruel. You're giving their motor cortex exactly the challenge it needs to build the neural pathways that will later become reaching, grasping, pointing, and eventually writing. The toy doesn't matter. The reaching does. 13. Why does your baby suddenly become obsessed with dropping things on the floor? They're sitting in their high chair. You hand them a spoon. They drop it. You pick it up. They drop it again. You pick it up again. They drop it again. And they look directly at you each time with an expression that, if you could translate it, would read, "Interesting. Let's see what you do now." This is not mischief. This is experimental science. Around 8 to 10 months, babies enter a phase that developmental researchers call the object permanence expansion stage. They've recently understood that objects continue to exist even when they can't see them. Now they're testing the next logical question. What happens to things when they leave my hand? Where do they go? Do they always go to the same place? Does the same thing happen every time? Every drop is a hypothesis. Every time you pick it up, you're confirming data. The laws of gravity, consistency, and cause and effect are being written into your baby's understanding of the world, one spoon at a time. There's a secondary layer to this behavior that is just as important: your reaction. They're not only studying physics, they're studying you. They want to know, does the same thing happen in the social world as in the physical one? If I produce an action, will I always get a consistent response? Your predictability, your willingness to pick up that spoon again and again with the same patience, is building something in them that goes far beyond object permanence. It's building trust in the consistency of the world itself. 14. Why does your baby seem to reset emotionally after crying hard, and then look completely fine seconds later? You've watched it happen. A cry that sounded like the world was ending, red face, tears streaming, whole body shaking. And then, just moments after you picked them up or the discomfort passed, they're calm. Not just calm, bright, looking around, almost cheerful, as if nothing happened. You've wondered whether the cry was real. It was. What you're witnessing is the difference between an immature and a mature emotional regulation system. In adults, the return to emotional baseline after a strong feeling can take minutes or hours. The prefrontal cortex, which manages emotional regulation, has had decades to build its connections to the limbic system. Those pathways are deep and complex. A baby has none of those pathways yet. Their emotional experience is completely real, completely intense, and then, when the trigger is gone, it's gone. There is no rumination, no narrative about what just happened, no anticipation of future discomfort. The nervous system fires, peaks, and drops back to baseline with a speed that adults have completely lost. This is not emotional shallowness. It's emotional honesty in its most pure form. What it tells you as a parent is this: your baby doesn't hold grudges. They don't remember the discomfort you couldn't prevent 3 minutes ago. Every moment of comfort you offer starts clean. Every time you respond to them, you're meeting a being that is entirely present, a being that has not yet learned to carry the past into the present. That, in many ways, is something we spend our entire adult lives trying to relearn. Your baby didn't arrive without a manual. They arrived as the manual. Every movement, every cry, every look, and every laugh is a phrase in a language that existed before any words. What changes when you learn to read it isn't just how you care for your child. It changes your relationship with another human being forever. If this made you see your baby in a new light, share it with someone who's going through this stage right now. Subscribe, like, turn on notifications, and leave a comment telling us which of these behaviors you recognized in your child. We read each and every one of them. See you in the next video.